when I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Take my hat off.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just...
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all and more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Baltimore City Mayor Bernard Jack Young. Happy belated birthday. We should have been hanging out. I guess I did see you around your birthday over there at Reggie's mom's. Well, that was just before our birthdays. But nonetheless, top of the morning, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so today's guest is a phenomenal woman. And like former Mayor Young and myself, she's a Cancerian. So, you know, as Cancers, we stick together. Check out this biography. University of Maryland, College Park, BA in English. Morgan State University, Masters in Urban Education. University of Pittsburgh, Theater Fellowship. Loyola College, Supervision and Administration Certification. Sewanee, University of the South, Education Ministry, Education Certification. Teacher 6 through 12. Administrator 1 and 2, Principal Certification, Baltimore City Schools Certification, English Teacher, United Way of Central Maryland, Director of Community Programs, Baltimore City Schools Drama and Speech Teacher, Federal Bureau of Investigation Agent, Baltimore County Public Schools Teacher, Chair, Equity Specialist Assistant Principal, Morgan State University Instructor, Graduate Cohort, Baltimore County Board of Education. Now, I got to just say this because I don't think this happens often. Now, this was her first year in Annapolis. She sponsored 4 bills and she co-sponsored, I'm going to take 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. I guess she co-sponsored about 60 bills. But she's going to tell us. Good morning, Delegate, Educator Extraordinaire, Friend, Big Sis, Cheryl Pasteur. Ashe.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Ashe to the ancestors. Thank you. And thank you for having me on. And just thank you for being you and speaking truth. Thank you.
I got to throw 2 names at you. Ella White Campbell and Dunbar Brooks.
Okay.
They're among our ancestors.
Yeah. And I love both of them. Now, they were some fiery folks. Both of them spoke truth, stepped on toes, slapped people around. You know, I always say, do you know what a bitch slap is? It's not just a hard slap. Can I say that? Okay, a bitch slap is just like this, bam, bam. You get it on both sides so fast, you don't even know what happened, all right? So both of them did that. And I love, 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 love both of them. Notice I put that in the present tense because those spirits stay with us. Don't ever get it twisted. When you think you're going south and you're supposed to be going north, they will stop you at the gate, slap you around, and turn you around if you're worthwhile. Because we know sometimes we have to just let some folks roll on, right? Because every brother's not a brother, every sister's not a sister. So some you just let walk right on through the portals. So you got me started. So let me shut up. Okay, go ahead.
One day, I think Aaron Barnett and I weren't quite on the same page, and I get a phone call, and the phone call was from Ella White Campbell, and I was instructed to come to her house and sit at her dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
A magnanimous house. You got to look around and see where you at.
Mm-hmm.
And she proceeded to hold court.
Oh, yeah.
And when it was over, I was instructed to assist Mr. Barnett in any way possible.
Well.
Now, Dunbar Brooks, I've only heard stories of his work, but what I think I understand is that he was an advocate for Black people. And so let's put this into context. We have been moving, migrating, emigrating from basically West Baltimore out the Liberty Road corridor since about, I guess, the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that emigration, in that sort of mass exodus, because it was gradual, a lot of us wanted better schools, better homes. Many of us were, tired of Baltimore City. And so as we got out there, we had to take with us our political acumen. And it was people like Ella White Campbell, Dunbar, yourself, who kept us on point. I have relatives out the Liberty Road corridor, and I submit to you, they'll call me and say, who do I vote for?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
now,
yeah.
I sort of grew up out there. All of my family was out there. So I've been going out there since a teenager. But politically, I know that we aren't as active as we should and could be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So may I jump in here? I want to start with the second person, with Dunbar. He was certainly, whether on the school board, whatever it is he did, he was an advocate for African Americans. However, he was not an advocate for stupidity. And that's important to understand, because his whole thing, and he has a daughter who's principal, Cheryl, and she's awesome. I'm so happy that she's working with children. But he wasn't just an advocate for Black folks. He was one who said, you need to be educated. You need to know what's going on. Don't sit at the table and talk foolishness. And we're not going to embrace it, because there are some stupid questions. There are some stupid statements. Let's get real. Where you tell children, oh, that's okay. There are no stupid questions. Well, yeah, there are some stupid questions. All right. And if we don't tell the truth, then we continue on saying stupid things, because no one ever told you that there's stupid stuff that people say. So Dunbar Brooks was not for foolishness. He would just say it to you. Ella had a look. She and I would stay on the phone. We'd be on the phone all night long. My head would be on the table, and Ella would be still talking, and I was like this. And she'd say something, and I'd wake up, and then she'd say, this is what we need to do. And one of your favorite people I know, Kenny Brown, and another person, you didn't mention him, but it's that Aaron Plymouth. I miss Aaron Plymouth. Aaron Plymouth is so in my head, in my heart, and so many of us miss him. And Cliff Collins. we would be on the phone 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to solve issues, and they would start falling asleep. I'm a teacher, so I said, wake up, wake up. That's what's wrong with Black folks. We always have to take a nap. That's what my father says. We always have to take a nap. Wake up, wake up. We wouldn't have been on the phone this long if it was easy. Wake up. And they would just wake up and we would start all over again. And that was that realm, because we don't have time, Donnie. We don't have time for warm and fuzzy anymore. But at your birthday party, I was all off somewhere else. So let me just stop right now. You go ahead and lead it, and I'll try to
Well,
be.
I remember Cliff Collins is still around, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember Cliff from his work in Baltimore City on the census, and I want to say 2000.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, because I thought he was Baltimore City, because that's where I met him. But then I realized he was Baltimore County because he started doing some type of community work out there.
Right.
In my time knowing him, I met him here in the city, but I came to realize that his real turf was Baltimore County. Tell me about Cliff Collins.
Cliff Collins actually came to this area to activate, to move folks through the national NAACP. And so he has been a long time member of the Baltimore County NAACP. Cliff is a little quiet now, but he's still there on the scene. Sometimes you do have to sort of be quiet. I'm gonna get there, but he's still around. Losing Aaron Plymouth was a big blow for all of us, but Aaron, Cliff, and I were real tight, and Aaron and Cliff were tight even before that. And so Cliff is feeling that loss in a very different and personal way. But if you want things done, Cliff will do it. Cliff is running a program for children that the Deltas do in one of our Baltimore County alumni chapter, to which I belong, is doing in one of our elementary schools. And he does a wonderful, wonderful job with that. But he is a person to trust. He is a person who speaks truth. If you're going in this direction and he says, turn and do this, or do this, don't even hesitate. Just go ahead. I trust Cliff Collins implicitly. He is a good person and who will speak truth to you.
Why do you think you are so revered in education circles?
Well, I thank you for saying that. I'm certain, considering how I got beaten up when I first got on the board, but it's okay because I was still standing when it was over. But because at the end of the day, people know it's about children, and I'm going to always be there with where there are children, where there are families, that need. I'm gonna tell you the truth. When I started at Lake Clifton, the year Lake Clifton opened, okay, so yeah, I'm old. 1971, Lake Clifton opened, and I was at Lake Clifton. Baltimore City said, we want this to be a special school, so we're taking people who want to be there. I wanted to be there. Annette Johnson and then Boyce Mosley. It was a different culture. Those children I had when they were ninth graders, and I took them through the 12th grade, made a difference in my life when not just being new, but we got through that piece. But they made a difference in my life during a hard time because they had seen some things they didn't like in their own lives. And when they thought I was struggling with any of that, they weren't having it. And they protected me and covered me and loved me. And I will forever, ever, ever, be grateful to those young people who were my students at Lake Clifton. And I vowed to God, 10 other people, and anybody else who wanted, that as long as I was drawing breath, that I would always be able to give back to them, to young people. And that's what I mean. So no matter whether people like me, I have about all the friends I need in this lifetime. So whether you like me or not, you have to respect the fact that I'm not going to change where it comes to young people. And if their parents need, then we all need. We work it out together. And
Okay,
that's it.
I need one of your affirmations, one of your quotes, one of your things that you like to recite. Come on.
Okay, I can't believe you're the second person in the last 2 days that asked me that. Okay, can I just do this poem that I taught all of my children? And actually, last year I did a part of it on the floor of the state legislature, delegate. And it is called Midway. I've come this far to freedom, and I won't turn back. I'm climbing to the highway from my old dirt track. I'm coming and I'm going and I'm stretching and I'm growing. And I'll reap what I've been sowing, or my skin's not black. I've prayed and slaved and waited and I've sung my song. You lashed me and starved me, but I've still grown strong. Lashed me and you've treated me and you've everything but freed me. But in time, you'll know you need me, and it won't be long. Oh, I've seen the daylight breaking high above the bow. I've found my destination and I've made my vow. So whether you deride me, abhor me, or ignore me, mighty mountains loom before me, and I won't stop now. And that's my piece to my students. And they all were taught that poem to say, it doesn't matter where you are, how you are, pull it up. Pull it up and pull it together. And when I see my babies on the street now, they say, Miss Pasteur, and some of them I used to have to do this to every day. Look at me. I got a job, I got a good house, I have a family. I'm out here. And that's the bottom line. Because if we don't take care of our children, our communities are going to fall.
You know, that poem put me in the mindset, and you would know better than me. What was that poem said? Lies, lies, bless the Lord. Don't you know the day is abroad? If you don't get out that bed, you scamp, there'll be trouble in this here camp. That's all I remember.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's what we have to do for our young people every single day. Every single day. Affirm for them that they are okay, that we might be tough, but it's only out of love. We throw away no children. We throw away no one.
So when did you come to be the educational powerhouse in Baltimore County? I get it, you over there in East Baltimore with our Dunbar arch nemesis, Lake Clifton, but how did you end up out Liberty Road?
Well, it's an ugly story. So when I was in the FBI, I knew that I needed to come back because the stuff I worked and things I saw, I wanted to come back to education. So I had always been in Baltimore City. But the year I came back to the Baltimore area, I, of course, applied to Baltimore City. Well, that was the year that in HR, they were having a little problem. And they kept saying, they didn't have enough teachers. And they kept saying, we don't have people who are applying. Well, I had applied and no one ever got in touch with me. Well, the long story short is that they discovered that in HR, the person who was there was not doing her job. And there were all of these applications literally under the desk that there's no follow through. That was back in the 80s, late 80s. So they found my app. So I needed a job and I wanted a job in teaching. So I applied to Baltimore County. And as soon as I
Why is it ugly? Why is it ugly? Because the person didn't do their job?
Yes, because there were all of those people who could have been in Baltimore City making excellence happen, and they weren't called.
Here's a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe God ain't want you in Baltimore City no more. Maybe God needed you out Liberty Road.
And I'm right there with you. I am so right there with you that was not my call, and it wasn't a call for all the other people who got called late or never or whatever. I'm right there with you. I got it, because this has been a journey.
You had the fire in your belly already. You had seen some things at the alphabet place, and then you had God gave you that wisdom. That's what we call the 3-letter people: FBI, CIA.
That's right. That's right.
He needed you because a whole movement was happening. This whole immigration of many people from Baltimore emigrating to Northwest Baltimore County, and they needed a Harriet Tubman out that way. As you were reciting that piece, Harriet Tubman came to my mind. Is she one of your favorites?
Oh, was she? I do Harriet Tubman reenactments.
Okay, there you go. Can we get one? Can we get a sample?
I can give you. And I went back down to the cabin, to my old people. I went to the cabin and saw, and I've forgotten her name, and I knew what I needed to do. So I took them and I made my way. And when I reached that land, I looked up and I looked at the sun shining down between the branches and the leaves on that tree, and I knew that I was free. But my freedom caused me to lose the old cabin and the people that I loved. I was free, but I was in a strange place. And I vowed then that as I was free, my people would be free. Sarah said, yeah.
Bravo.
See, if I had known you were going to ask me to do that, I would have been really prepared. So that was off an old person.
No, that's just fine. When I think of, and I learned this from the first Black councilwoman on the Eastern Shore, Moon Jackson Amos, that Harriet Tubman went back to get her husband, and this cat had already taken up with another woman.
Correct.
And what came to me is that she had to have been heartbroken.
Yes.
But she kept on freeing people. Now, I want to tell you, with me and FB, one of these social media platforms, I refuse to call their name, but they pulled me up and said, you said that she freed 1,000 enslaved Africans and she only freed 70. I said, well, and I'm talking about FB. I said, well, she freed 72 according to Wikipedia. But you don't know, FB, what she did down on the Kumbaya River with the help of the Union Army, where she freed almost 900 people.
That's exactly right.
So 900 plus 70 makes her statement good enough for me. She said, and now I've had a Black scholar come and challenge me on it, but nonetheless, it's out there. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. So whoever it gets attributed to, we still think of Araminta Ross, aka
that's right. That's
Harriet Tubman, who got hit in the head with an anvil.
But what were her words? And these were her words, because she memorialized her own words, is that when I looked up at that tree and I realized I was free in a strange land because my people were still there. So it was not just the physical freedom, it's that psychological. So what she did was millions and millions of people being set free here, to say it can be done. Because what she did and how she did it, because she was a strategist now. She knew which day of the week to do it, because on Saturday nights, they were out getting drunk, having fun, so she could move those slaves, and they would be either at church or drunk on Sunday, the pilgrims, and I call them pilgrims. The pilgrims were either drunk or in church. So it took them until Monday to realize that they were gone. She was a strategist and she had God on her side. She could hold a book upside down, she thought, and say, not know because she couldn't read, holding the book like she's sitting there reading and just having to pray that it was right side up. So come on, come on. You got to give her credit. Give her credit. And I could go on about her, but that's what it is. It's not just the body, it's what's up here. So I agree 100%. It was my time to come to Baltimore County because we came to Baltimore County thinking it was going to be the panacea, that all you had to do was change schools, change your neighborhood, and it was all going to be good. Well, it hasn't been like that. It hasn't worked out like that. We have to work at what we want to have for our children and our communities. It's in the game.
Okay, I'm going to throw another name at you. And since this man, there have been a series of, he kind of reminds me of how Dr. Calvin Burnett was at Coppin. He was there 32 years. That was Daddy. That was Coppin, or our mother's husband.
Right.
Since then, our mother has had a few stepdaddies that come through. So out there in Baltimore County, you had a daddy, and I'd like to think so. I thought he was a very decent man. And he had one black lady who was helping him. She was his assistant, and she's going to kick me in the butt for Phyllis, I think her name was. But his name was Dr. Joe Hairston.
Phyllis Reese.
Yeah, okay. So, but after Joe Hairston came a series of short-termers. I want to know, despite the racial situation, how do you keep getting a black school superintendent in Baltimore County, even when the one before might have made a mistake?
That's a good question. And there's some pieces to that I'm not going to tell you on here, but I'll tell you some other time, because it has not been an easy matter. But we have always had to articulate the fact that the superintendent needs to, and central office and our schools, which don't completely, have to reflect the changing demographics in Baltimore County. So now this is a very brown system. And so we had to take a look. Joe Hairston came larger than life. Now I'm going to tell you unabashedly that after Joe Hairston, they started trying to wear him out in his last term.
I was hired to go out there and help out, and I was shooting a cap at everything that moved.
Yeah.
Beat him like people. It was black people. Big sis. They hired black people to assassinate that man's character.
Yeah.
I know it was my job to hit him.
And I like, and that's the right word. That was assassination. It was a different way of lynching a black man.
Character assassination.
Yes, absolutely. And it took a toll on him because this is a man who loved what he was doing.
In the Obama era.
Yes. Yes. Let us not forget that. So one after another, Dallas Dance knew how to dance. He is good. That's a brilliant man. I mean, he didn't need a piece of paper to talk about anything, not a number, whatever. And as much as he was beaten, particularly about those computers, those laptops for every child, we were the only school system during COVID that in that area was prepared. We were on top of it because our children had those tablets. So he saw things a different way. But when he didn't want to play a particular game, then he got caught up. But always remember that what he did, and I have to say this in honesty, that what he did that put that light, a different light on him, was not why he had to do a little time. he did a little time because he didn't tell the truth. He should have just said, okay, this is what I did. And it had to do with the way I was, some other things, work I was doing, et cetera, et cetera. Throw yourself on the sword for a minute, and then take a look at the other people who sat on the board, who were around him, who also had glitches in their reports. Fix it. Fix it. But I'm going to tell you this, and I don't know whether he's listening, but I ran into him after he did his time. And I said, so tell me what lesson you learned, brother. And he said, I learned no matter how bright I am, no matter how gifted I am, I'm still a Black man in America. And there's some things that others can do that I can't, even if it is not illegal. It'll come up looking like that. And I told a lie. And that's what got me caught up. And I will forever be a felon. And that hurts his heart. That hurts his heart. And we keep going through that. And I want to make it clear, Dr. Yarbrough, as awesome and brilliant as she is, it was not a cakewalk coming into being superintendent this time. That was never supposed to happen again.
I think this is Derek Burnett. He's hiding behind his culturally conscious connections, but we know who it is. Delegate Pasteur, what are your thoughts on the lowest possible score program being implemented in Baltimore County schools? Students are being passed on with a D average.
Okay, and you know what?
Derek, stop putting your name there. Stop that hiding stuff. We are transparent here.
And spell my name correctly.
Yeah, get it right.
Pasteur.
Yeah. Okay. Give him a red mark.
Okay, so let's talk about that D. But I agree that we do have to lift our sights for our students in Baltimore County, throughout the state. Mediocrity is not acceptable. And we can tell by the scores that we have a lot of work to do. I'm not even going to play with that, because that's where we are. And we need to move beyond it. So we can't perseverate over that. What we need to be looking at and working together to make sure that we are going to fix those scores with integrity, with good instruction, with good people who are in our schools as our teachers, as our administrators, that the curriculum we're putting out there is first rate. So I'm not even, you can't refute the way the numbers look, the scores look, but let's talk about it. If you don't like it, let's work together. Stop putting the holes in. Let's think about what kinds of things that we can do in the Northwest corridor. Those of us who call in or write in or speak in, who live in the Northwest corridor, let's put together something like the Pikesville Schools Coalition, where parents and school folks have come together to make sure that those schools, Bedford as an example, Millbrook, and I'm talking ones that are predominantly minorities, that they are scoring well, that they work together to make sure we can lift that up. I want to see something like that for Scott's branch, because that principal is a beast. And those children deserve the best. So what is. So now let's start talking about how we're going to come together and stop talking at each other and about each other, and do what we know can be done collectively as a community to help fix those scores. And I have my money on Dr. Yarbrough to make some changes.
How come there are no Black people on the school board?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5.
What's the racial dynamics?
This is the best number we've had ever. So one.
How come, I mean, because when they come on TV, I always see the white lady speaking.
Yeah, because She is the chair of the board. So she gets to speak. When Makita Scott was chair, you would get to see Makita, but the one now is chair. The vice chair is Black. And you have four women and one male. What we need to have is another, I'd like to see another African American male. I'd also like to see a Latino on the board. Our Latino population is high and they are not being served on the board. There needs to be, I'm disappointed that there's not one on the board who was put on as an appointee. We need a Latino.
¿Tú hablas español?
No, I'm Espanol. I'm a
Necesitamos una persona que habla español. Somebody got to speak Spanish.
All right. Well, I can speak some words that all of the people with whom I speak know real well, and they fall out laughing when I use them, but I know those. I learned that when I was in that other place, other job, and I was living in Florida. So I do have some Spanish under my belt, but I'm not going to share it with you here. But let me just say this about your alphabet groups, because I think it's important to know how I ended up in there. That was not something that I aspired to do. But the year I applied to take the test, the Latino agents and the African American agents were doing a class action suit against the Bureau about hiring practices. And so I just said, well, let me just take this test because that plucked my nerves. So and the answer was, we can't find qualified people. So I took the test, and without going into a lot of details, there was an attempt to have me not go any further after I took the test. But I called headquarters and said, I know this isn't true. I know that was an English test. So I know what I scored. And they said, well, nobody would have called you anyway. So we don't understand what happened. I said, well, I understand what happened. But they looked into it and found that I actually had scored really high. So I was on a track because at that time I was 34. And at that time, 35 was the cutoff. So they were moving me quickly because they had this baggage on them with that suit. So I wasn't going to go in, but I thought, you know what? This is interesting. I don't like people to play me. So I'm going to follow through. You can't raise hell and then back up and hide. So I said, let me just follow through. And I never liked some of the things that happened during the 60s and the 70s.
Like J. Edgar Hoover. Was he a black man? Was he a black man?
Hoover?
Yeah.
I think not. But I'm going to tell you, Hoover helped me learn how to run fast, because when we had to do that run, I'd run past his grave and I'd say, this is for you, and could take off. But I did learn, Doni, during the process that during my college days, I had been watched with the Black students who were on Maryland for potential subversive activities. And I'm going to just stop there on that one. But I went in, and I'm glad, again, Godspeed, glad that I had that time, because not only did it help me when I came out, but it helped me while I was in, especially when I was in Florida, because I saw things happen to people and I could stop and say, hold up. Let me show you what I do. You don't want this civil rights violation, because I'm going to file it for them. So again, I could see it as a step.
Tell me about Florida.
Godspeed.
There's so much history in Florida. You know, this book the first people in Oklahoma came out of Florida. The Second Seminole War, I think, was one of the largest. They call it the Seminole War, but it was black Indians and Seminoles fighting against the likes of Andrew Jackson, $20 bill.
Yes.
Florida, owned by Spain until 1831, was a bastion of freedom for black folks.
Yes, that was undone. Yes, systematically. Florida, when I might just talk about when I was living there, was real interesting to me because it was almost once you got below Jacksonville. See, those folks in the northern part knew that they were black folks in the South. But once you got below there, it was almost like the civil rights movement, and nothing ever got put on television, radio. It was just, we're just here. And I watched such disrespect and brutality there. That's why I was happy I was assigned there. I was amazed. I was in the Tampa office. I really was amazed, much to my chagrin, at much of what I saw. I think it is a little better, but it was in a time warp.
So it's like Baltimore, because when Trayvon Martin happened, I swore I would never go to Florida again. But as I started researching this book, I learned how much powerful black history is in Florida. The first black man to come to America was not enslaved. He was a Spanish conquistador, Juan Garrido. There was a black pirate in Biscayne Bay named Black Caesar. Now, before they hung him, he had $6 or $7 million. We don't even know that there were black pirates. We don't even know that they had a place in Florida called Negro Fort. So like Baltimore, because we were so strong there, the attack was so strong and is so strong all the way through to this cat who should be pushed into the Bermuda Triangle, Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, and that history is so important to know. And that's why in Florida, particularly on that Gulf Coast, it's important for them to know the history, because that was squeezed in. That area was squeezed in. It was squeezed in by Cubans coming in, Spanish. It was even interesting. Well, that's another story. Yes, but it's important. That's why history is so important. You're so right. And that part of Florida's history doesn't often get told.
Just like, a lot of us want to go to Miami Beach and we don't know the history. A lot of us want to go to places like Europe. We put, we see what the Pilgrims are doing, and my God, if the Pilgrims are doing it, my God, it must be great. And we forsake our own. I mean, when you think of Mardi Gras next door in New Orleans and the Black Indians, many of us can't even fathom that some of us were already here when the Pilgrims arrived.
That's right.
We don't know our history. We only know what somebody else has taught us. And that's why I had to write this book, because if we don't do our history. Do you have Indians in your family? Did your grandma, any of them, Blackfoot, Cherokee, Apache?
We have, well, actually, to tell you, I'm going to go pull his picture so you know I'm not lying.
Come on with it.
My paternal grandfather is a Pequot. And
there we go.
And so, and you have to see and you know what, and can I just tell you this real quick thing? I always like to ask Black folks when they knew that they were disenfranchised and that in America they were considered different. So I asked my father one day, and he said, and he grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia, because so many of the Native Americans, even who were brought from the West, brought here, or from Connecticut down, they were coal mines. So my grandfather was a West Virginia coal miner. So my father said when he was 12, he remembered how old he was, that when he was 12, he He actually was out down across the tracks, and a police car picked him up, took him to the police station. And when they took him to the police station, they took him up to a white woman and said, "Is this the one?" And she said, "No." And they just set him outside. They never went to his mother and said, "We're taking him in," nothing. And then when they finished with him, they didn't even take him back to where they found him. They, wait a minute, Doni. They just put him outside the door. Well, he recognized, and this was fortunate, that he looks like his father. And because he looked like his father, it was easy for the woman to discern that it wasn't the right one. But he said he learned at 12 years old that had he not, that's probably why, and that he was always going to be in that same position, that same spot. My father is 91, and he can still tell you that story. That's right. In his 92nd, going in his 92nd year, he can tell you that story with clarity because it, at 12 years old, impacted his life, and it never changed. So even when we make up and say everybody's a Cherokee, okay, but no, it was no different because my grandmother was a card carrying Black woman, okay, and so we have to embrace that, as disenfranchised as we were, that this whole country, and that's why I call them pilgrims, because it goes back to Malcolm X saying pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock and Plymouth Rock landed on us. And I say it still is. It's not derogatory, it is truth. And unless we know our history and we know what you have written, what others have written, and understand that this whole mindset of servitude and let's one group with the other. I don't even say anymore Black and brown because we have to process who we are first. You can't attach yourself to another group of people until you know. That goes back to Thurgood Marshall saying he understood after the fact that you can't come to the table and talk about integration unless it looks like this. It can't look like this and think you can integrate. That's nonsense. That is distraction. And so we take a look differently at Booker T. Washington and his separate fingers. Build your own, get your businesses, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, and then you can really talk trash. Talk
Okay,
it.
so look, we got 12 minutes, and we ain't said nothing about Annapolis.
Okay.
This lady, Linda, is saying hello to you.
Hello, Linda.
So they have an educational advocate now, an educator extraordinaire now in Annapolis. And help me out. 4 bills of your own your first year. That's pretty darn good, right? I mean, a lot of first timers don't write their own legislation the first year. What's that look like?
Well, first of all, I'm going to thank Marvin Holmes, Delegate Marvin Holmes, because he had a bill that he's had, and he said, "Okay, go ahead, sister, take this bill, do something with it." And I thank him for that. Shelley Heddleman, Senator Heddleman, she brought some ideas about elder abuse, and that's my thing. And so it was easy, and some groups asked if I would sign on for the delegation, and I had no problems doing that. And I have to say, 2 others, and I'm so pleased about the bond bills, bond initiatives, because it was good for 2, for Owings Mills High School, for Woodhome Elementary, for a Latino church in my district and for the Irvine Nature Center, which we all jumped in on. But two of my bills, if I can just throw them out real quickly, and I'm going to bring back, well, at least one of them, because this takes me over the edge. We still have a chain gang law on the books in Maryland. And in 1999, the committee that goes back and looks at old bills recommended then that that bill needed to be repealed. So it was brought up, but it still wasn't repealed. So this was the last session, 2023, and we still have a chain gang law on our books. And we know that in several of our states that never took those off of their books, they have reenacted the chain gang. And we know who that impacts, whether it's racially or economically disenfranchised. And so my thing was, and everyone agreed when I took it through delegation, took it through the Senate, agreed that it needs to go. But unfortunately, it ran out. So I'm going to try to pre-file it so that it'll have a better number. So we ran out of time. When midnight hits, is over. And so it never made it all the way through. But that needs to go off the books. That's inflammatory on so many levels and embarrassing.
This is Mike Randolph is in Florida. And then this isn't Linda. This is Kiana Cook.
Oh, Kiana Cook. Hey, Kiana Cook. That's right. That's the night. Kiana Cook. Right across from where our church grew up at the Church of the Holy Trinity on Lafayette and Wheeler. All right.
That's your church?
Yes.
That's a real short service. I like that church.
Oh, yeah. It's real short, 45.
It was like 20 minutes.
No, it's about 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
I love that church. I was in and out, no problem. You know, that's the home for James Mosher baseball.
Yes. But Doni, let me now tell you this real quickly. On the 29th, which I think is next Tuesday, 29th at West Towson Elementary School, the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, through the support of the Baltimore County Black Caucus, we're giving a Black Caucus update. We're going to talk about the bills that we sort of put through this year, where we're going for the next session, and listening to people talk about what they would like to see us focus on. So
I'd like to see a task force, because we got a first Black governor. I'd like to see a task force. Let me back up. Considering that Baltimore City and Prince George's County are consistently in a fight for the bottom, 23 and 24 on the list, always the fight for the bottom. I'd like to see a task force assigned to those two majority Black jurisdictions to find out what the problem is. Yeah. Why are we consistently in a fight for the bottom? And I'd like the first Black governor to look at that. I think that's apropos.
Yeah. And because that touches what you suggest is wide ranging, and it would have to come from the governor because it's so big, because it's not, we sort of relegate stuff to, oh, it must be about education, but it all piles on top. It's not just that. I agree. It's a myriad of things, and all of those things in tandem need to be addressed. And
let me tell you something else. Here in Baltimore City, Black people on the Baltimore City School Board consistently take our historic names off of these school buildings, including George G. Kelson. He was an icon here in Sandtown. They renamed the school the Sandtown Winchester Academy. I'm so tired of these Black skinned administrators, board people who consistently strip. It's us stripping our own history away. Where do these people come from? How do you take names like George Kelson, who employed hundreds, dozens of people in this neighborhood. How do you just take his name off? How do you let somebody convince you to remove your history, black person? And you call yourself educated. I don't know what educated means sometimes.
Well, that's a good point. And I will say that tonight I'm having a fundraiser, and I call it, however, a collaborator, because
Where and when?
it's at the community college / library in Owens Mills on Grand Central, and it's at 5:30 to 7:30. And it's just such a wonderful group of people who have indicated that they're coming because they represent, it's not just political in that sense. It's about, that's why I'm calling it a collaborator, because I want people to talk about the issues that are hitting them, like Derek and Kenya Vincent. You need to have them on your show, who are working tirelessly for those who have been released from prison, so we can really make sure they get back into the community and have legs on which to stand, and so that they can talk to folks in the room about what they're doing. There's similar things. Dr. Nancy Connor, who is doing some wonderful work, and I'm trying to help her on women veterans. So just I'm trying to pull in different people tonight so that they can talk to each other and talk to some of the elected officials who will be there, and try to get some legs, some under them, some of these things that are real issues in our communities, about what we can do. The Sankofa African American Children Museum will be there tonight. So I know it's a little different and unprecedented, but I needed to pull all of these people together and say, what is it that we can do to make our community stronger? And here everybody is in this little space with your elected officials. So let's make excellence to happen tonight. So I call it a community of learners and developing a community of learning, because as Nikki Giovanni says, we all have something to give, and what's more, we have something to take. So it goes like this. So please come if you can.
So how can people reach you? How can they donate to your campaign? That's probably why I don't run for office, because I hate that, sending out campaign fundraisers.
Me too.
I'm a hustle for somebody. I'm a hustle for me. I don't know. But anyway, this is
that's where I am. I'm not good at that. So you can call Rainier Harvey. He can tell you. I don't know.
I'm gonna tell you the most tenacious fundraiser I've ever met, and that would be Sheila Dixon. Every day, this lady got a regiment, and she would make phone calls like 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day, like clockwork, just like the heavy bag. She right there, and don't interrupt her. That's what the routine is: 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. phone calls. Now, everybody has their own style, but it's a necessary part. It's kind of like, running, jogging, what that means to a boxer. You got to. But there are people who will help. And Rainier Harvey, okay, amen, they don't hire from within. There seems to be a need to think that white and charters are better improve public school. Okay, so I'm going to give you the final say. What you going to do with this final minute?
I'm going to thank you. I'm going to thank you for your tenacity, because I swear every time I talk to you, they're like, sis, can you get me on this show? But it's who you have and the research that you do. I know that people will come at you and say, well, that's not true, but you do your homework. And I like teachers go full circle. So I'm going all the way back to Dunbar Brooks. He would have liked you because you do your homework. Now you can talk the talk, but you do your homework. And isn't that what I said about him? He liked to support Black folks, but he was not going to support being stupid. And I'm not talking whether you get an A or a B. I'm just saying not wanting to know what the truths are. And that's what you do. And I thank you. And it has been it's been my pleasure and my joy to get some of this out. God bless you. Thank you so much for being tenacious and getting me here. Thank you.
You wouldn't have it any other way. You pulled me to the side and sidekicked me.
No, and look, you have no mercy. You tell people, you make people not want to come on here unless they speak in truth. Because why would I come on here and you say, okay, give me something to say, and I couldn't pull out a poem? Okay, do something about Harriet Tubman, and I couldn't do it out. And I'm gonna just throw out these names to you, and I'm gonna throw out this issue. Don't come on this show if you're not prepared. For real. You're the man.
To God be the glory.
And Kiana, we need to talk. Seriously.
We were up there with her when they put the Hose Heights. She lives in Hose Heights, named after Grandison, old historic Black community. And Roland Park blocked their access road. They did some very racist 1910-ish attempt to block their community. And that's, I remember her from when she ran for office down there on Lafayette.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my old stomping ground.
We need to talk, and we just need to get up from the kitchen table. We do some good talking in the kitchen, and just take it out and make it real and make it happen. Because you know what? There's no safety in being safe. Folks who want to get you gonna come after you anyway. So you might as well be out there telling the truth. At least if they come after you, they come after you for the truth.
And your daddy a young man. My mama would be 94, so your daddy's still a young man.
Yeah, he is. My daddy is a young man. But if one more person asks me if I'm his wife, I think I'm gonna slap him. I'm like, what? But he does look good. You have to see him, Doni, and he still has that walk. Okay.
Yeah, that swag.
And he could put that hat on. He's slick. Yeah, he is. He's
much
slick.
Love. Much love. Thank you for being my friend.
Thank you. No, thank you. Because you a hard man. Okay. I appreciate you. Thank you, Doni.
Good morning, world.